leaned up for clarity, pacing, and impact, while keeping the tone, structure, and original content intact. Have you ever noticed how enemy tanks often explode after just a single hit? In many cases, especially with Russian-made models, the chances of crew survival are extremely low. But that's not always the case with Western tanks. Take this scene for example. Two Ukrainian Leopard 2 tanks are advancing down a road when one gets hit. At first glance, it looks catastrophic. Flames erupt from the vehicle, but this isn't what it seems. The fire is caused by a controlled ignition of the ammunition. Moments later, the crew evacuates safely. Nearby, Ukrainian forces have already pinpointed the building where the enemy is hiding. An Abrams tank receives the coordinates, takes aim, and with a single precise shot, hits the target. A follow-up shot brings the entire structure crashing down. During assaults like these, a Bradley often leads the way, laying down continuous suppressive fire to break resistance. Then the Abrams moves in, systematically wiping out defensive positions. This is what coordinated support looks like. In another town under siege, a Russian tank pushes forward to dislodge Ukrainian defenders. But the Russian crew fails to spot a Ukrainian Bradley approaching from the flank. The Bradley locks on, fires, and disables the tank within seconds, then continues advancing toward nearby buildings while covering the extraction of Ukrainian troops. The enemy is forced to retreat. Elsewhere, a brief but intense duel breaks out between an older US-made Bradley and a modern Russian M1A2 The BTR opens fire first, but the Bradley immediately returns fire. The Russian vehicle tries to maneuver, but the outcome is inevitable. The Bradley comes out on top. Now let's talk about Russia's most advanced tank, the T-90M. It's touted as a modern main battle tank, but battlefield footage tells a different story. In one case, a Ukrainian FPV drone flies into an open hatch and detonates inside. Flames shoot from the turret and driver's compartment, leaving the T-90M a burning wreck. The same tactic is used on another tank. Flames burst from every opening, hatches, turret, even the barrel. The crew doesn't survive. In another scene, a Russian tank rolls into position. Ukrainian forces spot it just in time. A drone locks onto the engine, strikes, and disables it. Seconds later, another drone hits the turret. Still functional, but immobilized, the tank becomes an easy target for a third strike, this time hitting the vulnerable seam between turret and hull. The resulting explosion forces the hatches open as flames engulf the interior. Next, a strike drone armed with a grenade targets a modern Russian tank. Despite its reinforced turret, mesh cages, and electronic countermeasures, the grenade is dropped with perfect accuracy. The explosion is massive. Flames pour from the hatches, clear evidence that the ammunition has cooked off. In another encounter, a tank with even heavier upgrades, armor plates, dynamic blocks, and electronic jammers, is targeted. But a skilled drone pilot spots a small gap in the hatch. The grenade drops through. The fire suppression system fails. The only reason the tank doesn't explode? It had already expended its ammo. Here's another. Chains reinforce the bottom, shields line the turret, and an electronic warfare system hums at the ready. But the attack drone finds its mark. A plume of smoke appears, then the tank erupts into flames. Thermal decoys ignite. Sparks fly. The tank is reduced to a smoldering ruin. In the final scene, a Russian tank is on the move, firing its main gun. Everything appears normal. Then it hits a hidden mine. A blast that might have only disabled a Leopard or Abrams instantly turns this tank into a fireball. Why? Ammunition stored beneath the floor detonates. In another moment, a Russian tank pushes toward Ukrainian positions. Behind it, an FPV drone carefully follows, locking onto a weak spot. With surgical precision, it strikes the rear armor. A massive explosion follows. The tank is engulfed. The ammunition inside detonates instantly, leaving almost no chance of crew survival. Another tank, upgraded with extra armor, has one fatal flaw: an exposed front section. A drone operator notices and steers the UAV into that vulnerable zone. A moment later, it explodes into flames. Despite all the enhancements, the tank is abandoned. The war between Ukraine and Russia has brought the role of tanks in modern warfare into sharp focus. Initially, both sides relied on Soviet-era doctrine and hardware. Ukraine fielded thousands of T-64s, T-72s, and T-80s, models inherited from the USSR. Russia, with a larger defense budget, retained the same types and began modernizing them, introducing the T-90 and even showcasing the futuristic T-14. T-14 Armata. But few armatas made it to the battlefield, and most of Russia's armored forces remain based on older platforms. Ukraine, meanwhile, focused on upgrading its fleet, adding thermal sights, digital fire control, and better communication systems. When full-scale invasion began in 2022, many expected Russia's superior tank numbers to quickly overrun Ukrainian positions. But Ukraine turned to modern tactics, ambushes, portable Western-supplied anti-tank weapons like the Javelin and NLAW, and widespread drone use. Tanks without infantry support, drone coverage, or air defense became liabilities. Russia's massive tank convoys stalled, destroyed bridges, poor logistics, and ambushes halted their advance. Many tanks were eliminated, not in traditional battles, but by small drone teams or explosive traps. The weakest point? The top armor. Drones and top attack weapons exploited this vulnerability repeatedly. Russian crews responded with cope cages, metal frames welded onto turrets to deflect drone strikes. Sometimes they worked. Often they didn't. They also obstructed turret movement or added dangerous weight. Ukraine gradually began integrating Western tanks like the Leopard 2 and Challenger 2. These vehicles brought superior protection and targeting systems, but also presented logistical challenges. Different spare parts, new training requirements, and long supply chains made maintenance difficult. Still, when deployed correctly, Western tanks proved far more survivable under fire. Ukraine adapted quickly. Field workshops and mobile repair teams brought tanks back into the fight within days. Russia, relying on large depots, reactivated even older tanks like the T-62 and T-55 for support roles. But even more important than hardware is crew quality. Experienced crews react faster, maneuver smarter, and survive longer. Ukrainian tankers, fighting to defend their homes, have shown remarkable resilience and adaptability. Russian forces, facing manpower shortages, morale issues, and command disruptions, have often struggled with coordination. Tanks don't operate in isolation anymore. Without infantry, they're vulnerable. Without drones, they're blind. Without air defense, they're targets. Both sides have learned this the hard way. Yet tanks have not become obsolete. On open ground, no other platform provides the same mobile firepower and shock value. They break through defenses, anchor lines, and deliver psychological impact. The future of tanks is already being reshaped by this war. More active protection systems, better integration with drones, enhanced crew survivability. Some advocate for lighter modular tanks that can adapt quickly. Others call for fewer but more advanced tanks used in coordinated, multi-domain operations. In the end, this isn't just a war of steel and fire.